You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game, and we will be doing lots of politics this evening and public policy because we have as our guest Ron Sandack. Ron's an interesting guy because he is a state senator and he's running for state rep. You might ask, why would he be doing that? Why would a state senator decide to run for state rep? Is that not downward mobility? Well, that question will be answered during the show, so don't go away or we'll come get you. But more importantly, you're going to find out about Pat Quinn and the speech he just delivered, the state of the state and the state of the budget. And did he say the right stuff or the wrong stuff? We're going to ask Ron Sandack that. Ron's got an opponent. He's running in a Republican primary against Debbie Boyle. Is that right?
That's right.
We've tried to contact Debbie. We haven't succeeded so far, but we'd like to have her on because we are fair and balanced and definitely unafraid of anything. So let's get right to it. We're not going to mess around on this show. I mean, you're running for the state house. You're running in a Republican primary.
Yep.
And somebody might say, well, you seem like a pretty conservative guy. You're against spending, you're against taxes, you're against regulation, right?
Absolutely true on all counts.
All right. Are you too conservative for the district? Because you're running in what? The 21st is what you currently represent.
Yes.
You're running in the 81st, okay? That's Downers, that includes Downers Grove, where you were the mayor, right?
That's right.
It includes, let me see, what kind of like...
A little bit of Naperville, a little bit of Lyle, unincorporated Lyle Township, Woodridge, Westmont, Darien, and a bit of Bolingbrook.
Sounds like pretty exurban, suburban area.
Absolutely.
Okay. These are people, they don't want a libertarian, they don't want a fascist, they don't want a communist, they want a down-the-road solid American. Is that you?
Oh, absolutely. I epitomize all of that.
All of that, down-the-road solid American.
You bet.
All right. And you're going to be a person who's not, you don't like labels. You don't just look at things and say that person's a Democrat, I can't support him, right? If you can support Pat Quinn because he's got the right ideas and he's a Democrat, you say, the hell with the party. You'll be right there marching right behind Pat
Jeff,
Quinn,
it's
right?
about ideas, right?
Okay. So this guy's bringing jobs galore, he says. He's out there,
Right.
We're taping this show on February 5th, and Pat was just out in Rockford or Belvedere, where was he?
Yeah, he was out at the new plant.
New Chrysler plant, making the Dodge.
Cars.
Okay,
Yeah.
making some cars. He's been revitalizing things. Isn't Ford putting some jobs down here on the south side? Okay.
All good stuff.
So what's not to like? Why aren't you out there saying, hey, let's back up Pat Quinn?
Well, who's not for jobs? Have you met anyone that isn't for jobs? The question
Some
is...
people say, jobs bring problems to the environment. Some people want when they have to balance the environment on one hand and economic growth on the other, they go more with economic growth. There's a cost to everything. We were just saying before the show. What's the line?
There's no free lunch.
Ain't no such thing as a free lunch.
That's right.
Who said that?
Milton Friedman.
Right here, Milton Friedman, Capitalism and Freedom. Can we get that shot? Let's see. Let's wake up here, folks. Yeah, Capitalism and Freedom, right here, Milton Friedman. You'll see Milton from time to time. We'll talk about him. Of course, he's the late, great economist, Nobel Prize laureate from the University of Chicago.
Free to choose.
That's an important theme. There ain't no such thing as a free lunch. I offered you some coffee. Comcast doesn't charge for it. Okay. But what's the cost of that coffee? It could have gone to somebody else, to me, right?
Could have gone to someone else other than that. There's always an opportunity expense.
Same thing. And so if Pat's out there offering incentives sometimes to somebody like Chicago Mercantile Exchange to put jobs here, keep jobs here, people say that's a good thing, keeping jobs here. You would say no, because why? Is he draining, by giving something to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, is he taking something away from somebody else?
Well, he did.
Is that your point?
That's one of the points. You're a policy guy. You like good policy. Was giving incentives in that instance good policy in the short or long run? The answer is no. The answer is no to both. One, we took money out of taxpayers' pockets just a year before. When I say we, I mean the entire General Assembly and Governor Quinn.
That's when they passed the income tax.
That's when they passed that.
You opposed that?
I did.
Went from 3 to 5% on the individual level. So if you're watching this show and you're watching it on February 5th, 2012, if you crank back to, say,
January 12 of 2011.
Right before, you would have been paying a 3% a year income tax, and suddenly over the last year, whether you realized it or not, you were paying 5%. And if you were earning $100,000, say jointly, which is not an extravagant income for a family with 2 spouses employed, perhaps,
hardly
$100,000, their income tax went up approximately, what, $2,000?
Yes.
2% times 100,000.
In many instances, we used the marker of a week's wage in some was given to the state government, and nothing good came of it. Frankly.
Nothing good. So they didn't get their money's worth out of it.
Hardly.
And
I
the
think they-
corporations went from 4.8% to 7.2%.
Correct.
Some corporations said, we got to reduce our force here. If we have a choice between growing in Illinois, growing elsewhere, what choice did they make elsewhere?
They make choices that are in their best interest.
John Tillman tells us at the Illinois Policy Institute, after that tax increase over the last year, we lost about 100,000 jobs,
I think
right?
John's right.
You think so?
I do.
Because Pat Quinn says, no, we're gaining jobs here.
Well, he's trying
Who are
to
you
make
gonna
up
believe?
for it.
No, he says we gained jobs in the
No,
last year.
we haven't.
Now, are you going to believe Pat Quinn, who's the governor of the state of Illinois, or John Tillman at the Illinois Policy Institute?
I'm with Tillman and the
going
Policy
with Tillman,
Institute
okay.
on that one. I think the governor's is more aspirational rather than factual. Again, like I said earlier, who doesn't want jobs on the whole? There may be a few that say the environmental costs are too much or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, who creates the jobs? It's the private sector, not the public sector. Going back to your CME and Sears question, that incentive was poor policy. We should be creating a level playing field in Illinois and bringing in more companies, retaining what we've got by reducing that corporate tax.
So do you think the CME, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Group, do you think they would have stayed here anyway without the incentive? Are you willing to take that chance?
Really good question.
if you were Governor Sandack,
yes, I would
you would
have
take that
vetoed.
chance.
Yeah. I voted against it.
And you would have vetoed it if you were the
I would
governor?
have, yes. I would have.
Because you're saying you'd take that chance that they might leave and jobs would be lost. I mean, let's
Jeff,
say that's a tough way of putting it, but you would take that chance,
It is a
right?
tough way of putting it, but I would have, because in the bigger scheme of things, it's still lousy policy. What's going to happen in a few weeks? Every big corporation in Illinois that watched what we did with CME and Sears is now going to be under a fiduciary duty to send their lobbyists to Springfield and say what?
Give me theirs. Give
Where's
me
mine?
Where's
UBS
mine?
mail. Where's mine? Where is mine?
UBS mail, is that it?
Latin.
That's Latin?
Yes,
You know
sir.
Latin?
No, that's the only thing I know. That and my law school. I can regale
Okay.
you with law school Latin.
Qui bono, who benefits, right?
That's right.
Qui costo, who does it cost?
Caveat
That's what we know.
emptor.
All right, qui bono, qui costo. Qui bono would be the son of Sonny Bono. What was it? I don't know. Okay.
Yes, I
Sonny
think.
Bono and Sherry. So it takes us back a while. Okay, but seriously, you're saying so all these companies come down, and of course the small companies who don't get it.
No, of course not.
They
don't
have to
a
shrink,
lobbyist.
and those employees at those small companies are hurt because their company is not growing; it's shrinking. Their salaries may be held back.
And they're the ones paying the tax
And
increase.
so you're out there. This is what Dan Proft. You know Dan. He ran
I
for
do.
governor in the Republican primary. Dan's a good guy, right?
Dan's a good guy.
I mean, we don't usually give plugs, but you can find Proft on Wolf and Proft every Monday morning on WLS. And what
You're
is
plugging
that?
another radio station.
Well, we're not plugging them. We're just informing our viewers that if you're a fan of Dan Proft and Bruce Wolf, you can find them every weekday morning, 9 to 11 on 890 AM radio, right?
LS.
Have you been on that show?
I've not been on that
They
show.
haven't invited you.
They haven't invited me yet.
You would
But
like
maybe-
to be on.
Maybe if they watch your show and they see what a
Talented
wonderful,
guy you are.
talented, and thoughtful guy I am, they'll extend that
But
invitation.
seriously, when Dan has been on this show, he has talked about the Republican Party in Illinois has to go after non-traditional Democrats. And some of those non-traditional Democrats are viewed as labor, people working at small firms.
Sure.
And they're being hurt now by Pat Quinn. They're a Democrat, Pat Quinn's a Democrat, and his view is the Republican Party should be saying, look, you guys, we're not doing this for the rich. We're doing it for all people in Illinois to benefit. And that includes relatively low-income people who are working at small firms.
Absolutely.
And that firm's not getting the benefit, but CME and Sears are. That's his point. Is he right?
I think that is a good point. I think that-
You would go after in people in your race, in your running in the state house race. You're telling these folks, look, you're trying to help all people, including people in small firms.
Absolutely.
Vote for you,
Absolutely.
especially in the general election. Because we don't know. Debbie Boyle might have your views or might not. We'll find out
She's
when we get
paired a
Debbie
few
on.
of my views. So
She has.
yeah.
Okay.
I look at.
She's what? Parried
She's
your-
parroted a few of my views.
She thinks she's taken them.
She's
We'll
taken
find
a
out.
few.
Maybe she might say you've taken her views.
Unfortunately, she can't do that because I've been doing this for a year and I was the mayor
Okay.
of Downers Grove. So I've got a little bit of a
right.
record. She's a school board person.
Well, wait. If we could get Debbie on here, you would go right with her on a debate. You'd be
Sure.
happy to do
Why
that
not?
on TV.
Why not?
All right, Debbie, come on out. You've heard this. We'll skip the one-on-one interview. We'll just bring you mano a mano. We'd like to have had you here today, but we couldn't contact you. But we would because
Sure, why not?
we're fair and balanced, right?
Fair and balanced.
All right. So that's on the jobs front. You need to be fair. You want to repeal the income tax. You're saying.
I want to
Repeal the income tax increase,
the
not
increase-
the whole tax, just the increase from 3 to 5%.
That's an aspirational component.
Would
That
you like
be
to
nice.
repeal the whole income tax?
I don't know that that's doable. It would be great in a perfect setting. I
In
tell
a
you what,
Ron Paul setting.
in a Ron Paul setting, Dr. Paul.
Are you a libertarian?
I have libertarian bents, sure, but
Do you
not a
support
full.
Ron Paul?
I think he's a good guy. I can't say that I support him yet. I think many of his economic platform I do like. I don't dig his foreign policy.
All right, but you would like to repeal the increase in the income tax?
Absolutely, I'm on that bill.
took-
We have a
that
bill
occurred.
right now in Springfield
The
to
Republicans
repeal.
do.
They do.
Is every Republican in the state Senate signing on to that
I
bill?
think they have. I don't know that for sure.
What
Jeff.
about in the State House? Do you think every
Don't know.
Republican
I
signing on?
think so. I don't know that for a
But
fact.
Tom Cross and the Republican leader, minority leader in the House, he's certainly supporting that.
He does, and so does Christine Radoni
Don't
on
know
the
the
Senate side.
Republican leader on
That's
the Senate
correct.
side. John Cullerton, who's the Senate president, I would doubt supports that, right?
No, it was his bill that increased the taxes.
Right, so he would not support, even though it's supposed to sunset. That
Yeah.
tax is supposed to sunset
Right.
next year.
Right.
Is it next year?
2014.
2 years.
Correct.
You think it will?
No.
Okay, no way they give that up voluntarily.
No.
What has Quinn said? Quinn says, well, we'll have to look at that when it comes up.
Did you see the Civic Federation's report last week?
They said the state's going to have, what,
About $9.5 billion in unpaid invoices.
At the end of
stacked
which
up.
year?
At the end of 2014.
the end of 2014? I
No,
thought-
excuse me. That may be as high as it is this year. But at the end of 2014, their point was there will be no conceivable way that they could possibly
It doesn't say is
sunset.
it 2014 or 2017. They're talking about unpaid bills being in the same range as the general revenue fund of expenditures.
Think
I
about
think
that
about
for a second.
$30 billion.
$33 billion roughly, give or
of
take,
unpaid bills.
which is what the operating
Right now, it's
budget
$6 or
is.
$7 billion, right?
It depends on who you ask at the exact time.
What
It's
would-
over
what-
$5 billion.
Over $5 billion.
Yes.
This is after an increase in tax revenue of $5 billion, right?
Actually, $7 billion.
So $7 billion increase last year. of
Well, you know where the
revenue,
money went, right?
And yet we still have unpaid bills
The
in
money
Illinois
went to
of
pay
$5 billion.
went to pay pension obligations for that year. That's what it was.
Okay, so basically we raise taxes and people write checks to raise their income tax, and it goes, they could just say, this is going to the public sector unions.
To pay pension obligations.
Instead of putting to the Illinois Treasury, Illinois Department of Revenue, they should just write on there Illinois Public Sector Unions. Was that where we go?
Hey, well, it's the
Illinois
equivalent.
Public Sector Union pension money.
Yeah.
Right?
That's where it went.
Now, does that make you anti-union
No,
if you don't think?
it's a fact.
Okay.
That's a fact.
But you want to have pension reform, right?
If we don't, we're going in a faster direction down than the Civic Federation.
There's no way you're saying without pension reform to continue to pay the pension funds and pension retirements of public sector unions, right?
There is no way to fix Illinois' dismal, complete descent to the bottom absent pension reform. It is the critical #1 issue, followed closely by Medicaid reform.
And you like Senate Bill 512?
I don't love it. I like what
You
it's
support
trying to
it?
do. I do.
Did you have a chance to vote for it?
No, it's sitting in the House. The deal right now is
Did it come up in the
it's
House?
been up for a committee meeting.
It wasn't raised. Did Mike Madigan bottleneck it?
Maybe.
Did Mike Madigan keep it? Speaker Mike Madigan keep it?
He's
from coming
promised
up in-
15 votes on it. Tom Cross has
He'll put
promised 15 votes. Right.
And Tom Cross, that would give you 30. You'd need
I'm sorry.
60.
I just used the,
The
Senate,
Senate
numbers. It's 30-30.
30
Yes.
from Madigan and 30 from
Correct.
Cross, so that would pass majority.
And that would move it to the Senate.
So why doesn't Mr. Madigan, Speaker
It's
Madigan,
not
bring
been
it?
called.
Why doesn't he call?
I don't know if he doesn't have 60 votes in his caucus and or Leader Cross doesn't have 30 votes in his caucus.
Okay, so they promised 30, but they may not be able to deliver yet.
Well, I mean, that you don't want to call it unless you know what's going to pass.
Yeah. And you think they may not, even though they've promised it, each of
Gosh,
those guys
Jeff,
may not
if
have
n-
the votes.
If not now, then when? I mean, maybe they're
But
going
if
to wait
you,
till
you're,
after.
you're pledging that if you get elected to the State House, Tom Cross has your vote, you would support.
Oh, I told Tom I have my vote.
512. Okay,
Absolutely.
okay.
I have it for Christine right now in
Okay,
her
in
caucus.
this- right, okay.
Look, it's not perfect, and I know some people are upset by it, but if we don't do something meaningful,
So what does it do in a nutshell?
what does it do? 3 things. One, it's called pay to stay. So folks that are in the system right now can pay a higher contribution and stay where they are. Or they can drop into that second tranche, which would keep their contribution the same, but they wouldn't get the same benefit at the end of retirement. Or the third option, remember these are options and you like choice. Third option
It's not a
is
matter of what I
full-
like, it's a matter of what your voters like.
Yes,
Do you think
I
your
agree.
voters like choice?
I do.
They want to be free to choose.
I think they will always want to be free to choose. And I think the third choice is a 401k-like program. And what's important here is current retirees' benefits aren't touched at all. And you don't go backwards. What you've earned in the past, you've earned. This will now provide a mechanism for financial
But current
sustainability.
employees are affected. Unlike the prior pension reform that affected the pension benefits of new employees, this would affect the non-accrued pension benefits of current employees.
Sure.
And there are people who say
You
that
can't
that's
come in-
unconstitutional. The Illinois Constitution says you can't do that. You're taking away pension benefits that these folks already have.
The Illinois Constitution says you cannot impair or diminish an accrued benefit already earned. This is go-forward benefits
This is
only.
not accrued, is your point.
That's exactly
But
right.
they say accrued. Does
Well,
does
that's
Senate
what court-
President Cullerton say this would be unconstitutional?
He has mentioned that.
Now, how does he
But he
differ?
doesn't-
He's a lawyer. You're
He
a
is.
lawyer.
You're a lawyer,
Where's the firm that you work?
Guido and Finson.
Okay. He works at Thompson Coburn, I think. It's a big town national firm. You think he doesn't know the law as well as you?
I think he may know it as little as me when it comes to constitutional
So
expertise.
both of you guys are not experts
We're
in this
not
area.
constitutional
You're relying
experts.
on experts that say
I've got a Sidley and Austin and a Jenner and Block opinion. He's got an Eric
Mayor Brown,
Medeiros
too?
and Mayor Brown, and he's got an Eric Medeiros and a Freeborn and Peters, I believe, opinion. You know lawyers. You can get almost anyone to argue anything.
But does he have people of the same stature that you
think
just
so.
mentioned
Sure.
at Sidley and Austin, at Mayor Brown?
I don't know. Those are
pretty-
prestigious
okay.
lawyers. I don't know the quality.
Point
but
is,
it
but
will
you
be
think
argued.
there's a good argument can
Absolutely.
be made, and you're willing to take that chance, pass it, let the Supreme Court, the Illinois Supreme Court decide, and possibly the U.S. Supreme Court.
Why not? Isn't that what we're we're a land of
Okay.
laws and we have process. We shouldn't be afraid of making a decision.
Okay. Do you know if your opponent in the Republican primary agrees with you
I don't.
on that?
I don't know.
He hasn't taken a position as far as you know.
I don't know.
Okay. We'll have to ask. We'll have her on.
Ask
Okay.
her.
We're taking care. So we've been talking about pensions. You've laid out a plan to handle that. That's
But I
a
got
big
one.
ticket reform.
But I have one thing you don't know about me. You ready? What it is?
What's it?
I didn't take the legislative pension. I have
Okay.
a bill that seeks to remove legislative pensions in their
And
entirety.
you voluntarily gave up yours. You
I did.
Unilaterally disarmed, so to
I
speak.
unilaterally declined.
Declined.
Because here's why, Jeff. In our state, we have to absolutely move the ball on the 5 public pensions that are underwater. We're at 38% funded. The legislative pension, the General Assembly pension, is 18% funded. We got to have unencumbered leaders be able to lead on this issue. So not only did I decline the benefit, I have a bill to get rid of legislative pensions.
So you're asking other public sector units to either pay more or reduce their benefits or opt for a 401k. But in your case, you're saying you just want to remove that benefit completely.
For legislators.
For legislators.
Absolutely.
But you're saying that's a part-time citizen politician job. They're supposed to have full-time jobs somewhere else.
Exactly right.
You've got a full-time job somewhere else. You get your pension there. You don't need it here. Right?
Exactly right.
That's your point.
Lead by example.
Okay. Other people would say, oh, no, you just want the rich to run things. The poor guy who wants to work full-time representing the little guy as a state
am
rep,
the little
state
guy.
senator. But you're going to cut him out. You're going to force them to go get a job somewhere.
They should have jobs. They have to hey, look at. We need
Another
to
job
revitalize.
somewhere. They say they want to be a full-time legislator. They want to represent the public
Where's
completely.
your Illinois Constitution? You know that's a part-time citizen job.
Is that what it says?
Absolutely.
Right there in the Constitution.
It's one
You're
of
a
those
strict constructionist?
One of those crazy things.
You're a person originalist. You want to look at the original intent of the
Yeah,
people who
'cause
wrote
I think that intent still works for this
Now,
day.
it was amended when, in 1970?
1970. Mike Madigan was one of the authors of some of the amendments.
So Mike would agree with you for
Mike
sure.
would vehemently disagree since he hasn't missed a day of the General Assembly since 78, I think,
He would vehemently disagree with
term limits.
because he's a full-time. Well, he makes a lot of money on his law firm, right? He's not a
I think he
part-time
does
guy.
well. He does real well. And
He
that's
does
not-
extremely well.
That's the difference
Now, how
between-
does he do well? He does. What does he do? Real estate tax assessments.
Sure does.
So people come to him because he's really good at math, and he can make sure he's not assessed more, or his
We
clients
should
aren't
know
assessed
better at math
more.
when it comes to our budget, but yes.
So
that's
his
right.
math, or do you think they're buying influence? Is Mike Madigan, Speaker Madigan, is he an influence peddler?
He's an influence. He certainly has a ton of clout in the influence world. No
So-
doubt about it.
Corporation comes to him, they say, we want a reduction in the real estate tax that is being assessed against us. Speaker Madigan, can you do it? And he says.
No, but my associate can.
And you'll pay the associate, and they think, though, because Speaker Mike's handling it,
His imprimatur is on it.
is on there.
Yeah.
And they might be more likely to get that reduction in a tax assessment than they want, right? That's what we call influence peddling?
That's certainly.
you-
There's
Are you leveling that charge
I am
as
not
Speaker Mike
leveling that
Madigan?
charge. You are, but I'm agreeing.
No,
that
I'm not leveling that charge. I'm saying that's what people say.
Sure.
Would you agree with that line of
I
argument?
agree that we need citizen servants, and I agree that ending legislative pensions and going with term limits are good ways of returning to citizen-led legislatures and getting rid of untoward influence, whether it's full-fledged peddling or by innuendo influence peddling.
We've talked about taxes, which you know are important to your constituents, your potential voters. We've talked about pensions, which certainly are a part of what leads to higher taxes. And Rob, some would say, John Tillman at the Illinois Policy Institute, others would agree, would say by having these high pensions, higher than competitive pensions, higher than the private sector allows, not only are you causing taxes to be higher, but you're robbing social services from people who are truly needy because the money goes right to the pension, so you can't pay for human services. You can't subsidize prescription drugs for seniors who may need that. You can't cover the costs of education for low-income parents who may want a subsidy and may deserve a subsidy, which leads us to education. Is that important to the people in your district?
Oh, I think it's important to people in every district. So the answer is yes.
But in your district,
education.
You represent a relatively affluent area, and you're seeking to represent relatively affluent areas.
I reside and represent DuPage County.
Downers Grove, Woodridge, Westmont, Darien, Naperville, Bolingbrook, unincorporated Lisle. That's the area you seek to represent.
That's correct.
Any low-income folks in those areas?
There's some lower income areas, sure.
But on the whole, the education is probably good. Spend a lot of money, get a quality education.
Correct.
But there's some areas where they may not get a quality education, and they still may be spending a lot of money, right? Mm-hmm. Would your voters like to have school choice?
I think resoundingly so.
Yeah, and school choice means what to you?
What it means to me, it means empowering parents. It means funneling resources, including but not limited to money, so that education dollars are spent wisely rather than in overhead and administration, and making schools competitive.
So hypothetically, what would you guess throughout, there probably are a variety of school districts in your area?
There are.
K through 12, on average, what do you think they spend on average per kid? I'll give you a hint. In Chicago, K through 12, it's a $6 billion budget, about 400,000 students. Divide one into the other, you get 15,000 per kid per year in the Chicago public schools.
See, I think they spend more there.
More than 15,000.
No.
Do you think they spend more in Chicago than they do in the suburbs? Because people always say it's in the reverse.
I know, but I think
At New Trier, which is near where we tape, they do spend more than Chicago does. Not a lot more, but some more.
Okay,
They might spend 20,000 at New Trier.
Okay, my guess is it would be probably equivalent, maybe even a little less, but I don't know that.
So say it's 14,000, a little less. Would you like to give people that $14,000 a voucher and say, if you're happy with your public schools, and many are in your area,
you bet,
stay there. If you're not, out goes the kid, out goes the $14,000 to the private school of your choice. It could be a sectarian school, it could be non-sectarian, it could be a charter school, whatever. You choose. You'd like to do that.
Oh yeah, I think that's a great way.
That full thing, $14,000. It empowers them, right?
You get to vote with your feet, right?
Right.
You get to make choices, and you get to make the schools competitive. And I think I'm also in favor, by the way, of try to consolidate some of these school districts and get rid of the massive overhead.
The thing is, once you go to a voucher system,
that takes care of that.
Yeah, because then we have what the market wants in terms of consolidation. If people want to be a part of a 2-school district, they are. If they want to be a part of a 20-school district,
they are.
Let the market decide.
You bet.
You agree?
I think that's great.
Milton Friedman, you got it right again?
Second plug.
Because, this guy in, I think it was 1952, we should look, but 60 years or so, he wrote a book called Capitalism and Freedom and talked about school vouchers, talked about it before. So 60 years later, I'm sure Milton's smiling that one of his former students is at least raising the issue. We've got to be fair and balanced. Because a lot of people say this is not going to work. Tom McNamee sat here right where you were, and he's the editorial page editor of the Sun-Times, and he said, look, he says there's no evidence that charter schools, which is a form of choice, outperform traditional public schools. And I said, Tom, what's the evidence that you have for your? He said, well, out in Inglewood there are 3 schools, 2 are charter, 1 is not, and there's no evidence they do any better. And I said, there's this book, School Choice, the findings, which looks at like 50 separate studies, maybe more.
Look at Milwaukee.
Not just one school. Yeah. Milwaukee's
a great example.
Or DC.
Sure.
There are 3 right there.
Right.
All those show it works. That's what you would tell Tom McNamee?
I would, and I would also tell him that there was a bill in the state Senate that I think the Reverend...
You haven't read this book, but you'd like to.
But I sure would.
Take that. School Choice, the findings. Herb Wahlberg is the author. Herb was associated with the Heartland Institute. I think it's actually published by Cato Institute. You know those folks.
Heartland's a
They
great
may not have
organization.
everything right, but you want to be informed. If there are 50 studies that are summarized here, Be nice to know, right?
You bet.
You're going to spread that around the state legislature?
Look, I'm for that.
You want to share this to Senate President John Cullerton?
Actually,
John hasn't been here lately.
I bet he won't, is he?
He would love to read that, though.
Okay, well,
John's an
I'll hand
open-minded
it to
guy.
John.
He's a fair guy.
I'll show it to John.
We like John. We'd like to see him here.
And I'll tell him you said that and see if I can get him here.
So we've covered education, we've covered pensions, we haven't covered Medicaid. That's the 800-pound gorilla in the room.
It is.
So we're running low on time. You only got a minute.
Okay.
What do we need to do about Medicaid?
Well, the Tribune did a great little editorial the other day about trying to get folks into managed care. You know, the city of Chicago wants to put 100,000 new people on Medicaid. 28%, I think, of all Chicagoans.
Who wants to put 100,000 new
The
people?
city of Chicago.
Why do they want to put them on there?
Because they now qualify.
Maybe eligibility. They're low income. These people don't have health care. You want to help low income people get health care. Why shouldn't they be on Medicaid?
I want to make sure that the right people are on Medicaid.
Do you think their income is too high? What should their income be to get on Medicaid? 20,000 for a family of four? 40,000?
Here's what we do know right now.
What's the number?
Here's the number. Ready? Right now you need one paycheck, and you don't have to prove that you're a resident of Illinois. We put a bill on the Senate floor and it went through, and Quinn even signed it to try and tighten up some eligibility. We know there's fraud and there's abuse.
So it passed?
It did, and then the
Is it
Obama
now the law?
No, the Obama administration
They
wouldn't
rejected
accept
it. They said it violates whatever Medicare,
Exactly.
Medicaid.
Exactly.
Well, Medicaid is a shared federal state.
It is.
And so they said no, you don't have
We
the
won't
waiver.
give you your federal portion.
So here's a case where Quinn's doing the right thing. People,
He did.
in your view, because people say you should try to get waivers. He
Yes.
tried to get a waiver. It's the Obama administration.
On
That's
that
the
one,
problem
it's clearly the Obama administration.
Yeah. Did you know Barack when he was here, when he was a state senator?
I met him once.
Yeah.
I know he sat in this chair.
Yeah.
No, I met him in Springfield.
Oh, okay. He's a good guy.
Real nice guy.
You like him.
As a person,
He could charm the pants off you, right?
I think he's a charming guy. I think
Almost
he's
as
a
charming
nice
as
guy.
Bill Clinton.
They're both charming guys.
He's a smart guy.
Absolutely.
So why wouldn't he do these things? He cares about the people. He wants to help low-income people. He's a
I think
smart
he's
guy.
a big government guy. I
You
think
think?
he and I disagree fundamentally from the start on what government can
You're a small
and
government
should
person.
do. I'm a limited government guy.
Debbie Boyle, your opponent in the
No
Republican
clue.
primary? You no clue.
You can ask her.
Debbie, you going to come on and go toe-to-toe here with Ron Sandack?
Sure.
All right.
Ron Sandack will do it.
Have you asked Debbie to debate you?
I just sat here right today.
Is there a debate coming up? We're taping this
but-
on, what's the date? We're taping on February 5th.
That's the day we're taping.
Yeah.
What day is it show?
Well, we might be up on YouTube this week. So
Nice. All right.
you're going to have something come up
February 15. We have a candidates forum over at the Downers Grove Chamber of Commerce, which is a good thing. And I'm sure we're going to have some opportunities for
Who's sponsoring it?
that's
The Chamber
of Commerce. The good
Do you know the
folks.
time? 7 o'clock, 7:30?
I don't know the time, but,
they should find out.
They should find
They
out.
can check with your office
My website, www.ronforillinois.com, will have all that information.
and have listed, because you want the people to come there, see you and your opponent, and that you want them to be free to choose.
I do. That's
Who's
personally.
who's the best person to represent them, right?
Exactly.
Who's
what
the best?
America's all about.
Right, democracy. And everybody you think should come on public affairs, because this is how people get informed, right?
Absolutely.
Do you think people who watch this show know more about you than they did before?
Well, I sure hope so.
Did we bring you to life, so to speak?
You added life, yes.
Okay, so they can go to their website, your website.